the last episode, we learned how to identify forgeries thanks to our colleagues in the Gold Museum in El Museo del Oro. We also learned how these objects are connected to their landscapes. Now we really needed to establish a relationship with the descendants of the indigenous peoples who created the objects, with the descendants of the Tairona. We thought that the descendants could help us understand the objects, their meaning, who made them, how they were made, all of those questions that we as Westerners have about objects. But we really discovered something very different from that.
I mean, how do you get in touch with Indigenous people? How do you start? It's not like you can call them up and say, hey, we're from LACMA, we want to collaborate. You know, let's have a meeting. It doesn't work like that. We needed some other way to get in touch with them.
We had a contact in Los Angeles that was connected to the Arhuaco community in La Sierra Nevada de Santa Marta. And she was generous enough to accompany us and introduce us to the Arhuaco community. They are one of the most outspoken, they are really active politically, and they maintain their traditional way of living, thinking, dressing.
But the challenge is always that you don't want to offend them. You know, if you don't know much about their culture and you don't know their customs, you don't know the rules, so you don't want to do anything wrong. In Colombia today, there's over 95 recognized indigenous tribes. And in the Sierra Nevada de Santa Marta alone, there are 4 indigenous tribes, and they all claim some sort of descent from the Tairona. And we got in a van and went where they were taking us. I didn't really know where we were going. They had mentioned the Piedras do Nama, but I didn't know what that was. I'd never heard of it before. On the way there, the van got a flat tire. So we pulled over by the side of the road and had to figure out what to do next.
The 2 Arhuaco leaders we met were Mamo Camilo Izquierdo. Mamo means leader, and Jason Perez Villafaña. He plays the role of translator. So there you are, going out of the car, many people going out of the car. And we didn't know when someone was going to come and help us because there was no way to repair that tire. So, you know, me being practical, I decided to go walk around the road and see if we could find a nice area to start shooting and interviewing him. I said to Jason, can we do this in Spanish? And Jason went back, told Mamo Camilo in Arhuaco, and Mamo Camilo said something in Arhuaco was really serious. And Jason came back and said, Mamo Camilo says that there's a time and a place for everything, and that this is not either the time or the place to talk about what he needs to say. And I realized that I had just not understood my place. I really needed to start listening and to change completely my attitude.
Once we got in a replacement van, we continued up the road, which was just winding its way up the mountain. After a few hours, you know, we turned the corner and the site was just there. They were beautiful. I hadn't seen anything like it before. That was the location that they chose as the appropriate place to start this conversation.
So Mamo Camilo has become a very important spokesman, not only for the Arhuaco that he represents, but really for the pueblos of the Sierra Nevada. He's a real important leader. Mamo Camilo speaks Iku, and Jason can translate these original concepts in Iku into Spanish.
Que todo decir qué es ser mamo. El ser mamo es conocer la ley de origen, desde la creación, todo lo que allí se escribió Duanama, es dejado no dejado por el hombre de hoy, sino antes de la misma creación como tal, se escribió desde el pensamiento. Allí empezó a plasmarse en las piedras. Duanama es el libro, o para ustedes es la Biblia, es el libro sagrado para las distintas culturas. Pero más allá de todo esto, esto no es escrito por nosotros mismos, sino desde la misma creación. O sea, el ser mamo no es simplemente el nombre, sino es entender, conservar ese orden.
Mamo Camilo is one of the descendants of the Tairona, and we have so many objects from the Tairona in our collection. We were hoping he would really guide us, he would say something about these to us. The first time Mamo Camilo came across one of our objects was in a photocopy, and he started just, caressing that photocopy in silence, and he didn't say much.
One of the problems that we have is that we have our categories and classifications and our questions about these things that always need to be answered, or that we traditionally and that our audiences want to have answered. What is it for? What date is it from? What does it show? What does it mean? How was it used? But, they really didn't answer those questions for us. They really didn't seem to think that those questions were what was important about the pieces. They were much more leading us into understanding the world as a whole and our role in it and the role of the objects in that.
A nosotros nos dejaron para que tengamos esa relación de cuidar las cosas. Cada elemento representa a otro elemento como padre o como madre para cuidarlo. Resulta y pasa cuando fueron llevados, fueron saqueados, es como secuestrar a una persona.
These objects were like family members to them, and so us having them in the collection at the museum was as if a person had been kidnapped. They really called us out on that.
Y luego tenerlo encarcelado, eso hace que para nosotros la pregunta es, como mamo, allá con qué lo están alimentando, qué come, qué le dan.
I don't think we were quite prepared for Jason to be that direct. It's a difficult concept to wrap your head around, to be considered as kidnappers. But his next question was actually about how we take care of them. What do we feed them? What do we nourish them? So the demand from him wasn't actually, you have them kidnapped, we want them back, we want them set free. It was, how are you taking care of them? I distinctly remember thinking, what can we do about it? What can we do about the situation? If that's how they feel, and we have those pieces, okay, where do we go from here?
Para nosotros todo tiene vida, tiene una razón de ser, de existir. Para nosotros cada elemento es tan importante y hace parte de la relación del universo. Entonces también, como tienen con tanto interés y responsabilidad, ojalá también pudiesen aprender ese mensaje a profundidad, que esos elementos que tienen allí guardados también supieran que lo tienen encarcelado.
So what does it mean for a museum to have ancient American objects? Of course, to have these objects is to teach everyone that these are our pillars of our civilizations, no? But what does it mean when all of those objects are not then connected to the living peoples anymore? It's been part of this dynamic conflict between the dispossessed and those who possess.
Siempre se reclama que cuando se dejan esos espacios vacíos, ¿qué daño se le está haciendo acá? Entonces, de allí deriva los diferentes cambios climáticos. Y cuando nosotros hablamos de esa relación de la naturaleza, hombre y naturaleza, es allí cuando nos he dejado a cumplir alimentándolo diariamente. Y hoy todavía lo seguimos practicando. Entonces, ese mensaje también quiero dejarle claro.
In a museum, it's all about preservation, conservation, the safety of the material object, nourishing. We didn't know what that was.
We want to learn, but they're telling us that we first have to unlearn. What does that mean?